UFC 311 went down last night, guys, and the card ended up being fantastic, even though the main event got changed last minute. I mean, we're going to get into everything, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe for me. Let's get into it. We got to start out by talking about the main event. Islam Makhachev defeats Renato Moicano at 4:05 of the first round via Darce choke. To start this fight, Renato came out and he was trying to press Islam a bit, and he looked, in the fight on the feet, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen. I thought Renato's best shot was going to be on the feet. That was kind of obvious to me. He does have a pretty good top game on the ground, but off his back, I wouldn't say he's like a Brian Ortega or anything like that. Very good jiu-jitsu, but just not in the same ballpark on the ground as Islam Makhachev. So if he was going to win this fight or have any success, I knew he had to keep it on the feet. And Hanato did have, a couple moments. He landed some nice leg kicks. He landed that, I think it was a right hand that glanced off the top of Islam's head, that sat Islam down, but Islam also slipped at the same time, so it really wasn't a knockdown. Um, After that, Islam implements his game, gets the takedown. They get into a scramble. Hanato tries to get up. In the midst of trying to get up, Islam wraps around his neck like a damn anaconda, sinks in the Darce choke, and Hanato tapped very quickly. Man, Islam is the pound for pound number one guy in the world. I don't think there is a question about that. Um, yes, Hanato was the number 10 ranked guy, but Islam did exactly what he was supposed to do and just showed that Hanato did not belong in there with him, and he blew the doors off him very quickly. Where does Islam go from here? I don't know. It's tough because I thought that if him and Armin fought, it was going to be a competitive fight, and obviously they fought before, and Armin did have some success and gave Islam a very tough fight on short notice, and it was Armin's first fight in the UFC. So they had history there, and Armin obviously has looked great as of late. He was on a roll, then suffered the loss to Mateus Gamrot, and then he's been rolling ever since then. But after watching Islam just dispatch of Hanato very quickly, obviously you can't make this, assumption with much conviction, but I'd be willing to bet that when he does fight Armin eventually, he will beat Armin, especially because even though Armin got the title shot, I still feel like he is raw and not all the way polished and not fully ready for that level, which is crazy to say because he did beat Charles Oliveira, but that was a close fight. Um, Dana did say at the press conference that Armin is not going to get the next title shot. He is going to have to fight again, and we'll get into that later, what matchups I think make sense. But for Islam, in the lightweight division, obviously you have guys he hasn't fought, like Gaethje, Hooker, Max, Armin, but a lot of those guys are the old guard, and the new up-and-coming guys are starting to kind of take over the division, as we saw with Armin getting the title shot. Um, but I just don't think there's anyone at lightweight that is going to take that belt off Islam. I think if Islam wants a real challenge, welterweight is the place to go. But it's tough because Bilal at one point was a part of Team Habib, and I think still does train with those guys on and off, and obviously he has a great relationship with them. So I'm pretty sure Islam and Habib have said they would never fight Bilal. And then Shavkat at one point was trained by Abdulmanap, so I don't think he would want to fight Shavkat either. So he's in a tricky situation. I do think he stays at lightweight for the foreseeable future. He'll definitely get the Armin fight in there eventually. maybe towards the end of this year or beginning of next year, depending on when Armin comes back. But Islam is just head and shoulders above everyone else in that division, and he is the best fighter on the planet right now. There's not much else to say about him when it comes to this fight, just because it wasn't the most competitive. But Islam is the guy, and I don't think there is anyone at lightweight that is going to take that belt off him. Will he make a few more defenses? Yes, but I don't think anyone is going to actually be in the conversation to take the belt from him. Hanato, he looked all right for what it was. It's about what we thought was going to happen. At the end of the day, I love Moicano because he's entertaining, and the way he's been talking shit lately is awesome. But he's just not at that level. From here, I think they probably should rebook the Dariush fight. Hanato didn't take very much damage, so I think they could do that probably in May or something like that if Beneil is willing to wait that long. But 35 years old, if he was going to fight for the belt, this was the time to do it. It sucks that obviously it's not like he had a full training camp for it, Islam specifically, but 35 years old at lightweight, maybe if he got another 2 wins, he would have been in the mix for it, realistically, but this was his shot, and it didn't go his way. He's still a very good fighter, and I love watching him fight, but just not at that level yet, and probably won't be because he is older. But kudos to him for taking the fight against the pound-for-pound #1 guy on a day's notice. It was awesome. Kept the event going, but not at that level, as we saw. Guys, in the co-main event, man, this was the fight of the night for sure. And I have to eat shit on this one because I really read it wrong. I had Usman winning, and I thought, not Usman, wrong Nurmagomedov. I had Umar winning, and I honestly thought he was going to win decisively. Similar to like the Sandhagen fight where it was, 49-46, 50-45, where Sandhagen had his moments. I thought Merab was going to have his moments, but overall in the end, I thought it was going to be clear that Umar won, and that just wasn't the case. Umar had a lot of success early on in the first and second rounds, and I was like, damn, this is probably how the rest of this fight is going to go. And then Merab, just the dog of all dogs. You can never count that man out, and I learned a lesson after this fight. He is just a different animal. Relentless, unlimited cardio. If you don't put that guy out, he is going to be very, very tough to beat for anybody in that division because he's relentless. No matter what you hit him with, no matter how skilled you are, he will not stop coming forward. And it is not like a, Nick Diaz, like, just keep pressuring you. Like, no, Merab is like moving at a fast pace the whole time, His pace does not slow down. In the 5th round, he looked like he was still super fresh. Like, it looked like he was in the first round, if not better. But yeah, Umar wins the first 2 rounds. It's looking like Merab is going to have a tough night. And then Merab turns it around in the 3rd. Really turns it around in the 4th. It's 2-2 going into the 5th. And then Merab really wipes the floor with Umar in the 5th round, taking him down multiple times, showboating all over him, taunting him. Made it look easy in the 5th round. Super impressed with Merab. I thought that their grappling was going to cancel out for the most part, and then Umar was going to outstrike him on the feet and kind of just pick him apart from distance. And Merab really just, I don't want to say he broke Umar, but he definitely was able to break the distance and get inside on him and wing big shots and not even land the takedown, but just make Umar constantly work, which he is not used to. He is used to being in control of the fight, and making other guys react to him, and Marab had him reacting the whole time from the third to the fifth round. Super impressed with Marab. Very, happy for the guy. Like, honestly, I thought he was going to be a transitional champion, from O'Malley to Umar. He was going to hold the belt for a few months and then drop it. But now, I mean, he established himself. You get a win over a Nurmagomedov. What else do you really need to solidify yourself? Awesome, awesome performance from Marab. Really can't wait to see what they do next. I assume the UFC is going to run back the O'Malley fight, whether we like it or not. O'Malley's just too much of a star for them not to. So I think that's exactly what Dana White and the UFC is going to do. And I'm picking Marab in that fight again. Even though I'm one of the few people, I do think if you go back and watch that fight, O'Malley has a case for winning 2 of those rounds. And honestly, I thought they were pretty clear on the rewatch. Competitive, but I did give them to O'Malley. But if they fight again, I mean, I think Marab will be even better. And a similar thing is going to happen, man. It's tough to deal with a guy with a relentless will and unlimited pace that he is going to put on you and make you work the whole time. Awesome performance from Marab. I can't say that enough. He had the whole place going crazy when he was in that 4th and 5th round. It was really awesome. I'm super happy for him. I know they said that Umar, they released a photo of his hand. Apparently he broke his hand in the 1st round. That sucks. I get it. But injuries happen in fights. And at the end of the day, he lost. A big part of it was the fact that he gassed out. Could you say if his hand wasn't broken, he would have been able to control the fight a little more and not, be going at Marab's pace so much and gas out? You could say that, but it's not what happened. It's the fight game. Everyone goes in there with injuries or gets injured in the fight. I think Marab had staph. That's what all that shit on the front of his shin was. It happens. Marab won that fight fair and square, clearly, and he did it on the tail end of the fight, taking back the momentum and taking back the control, which is super hard to do when the fight isn't going your way. Great performance from Marab. Deserves every bit of admiration for it. Going into the featured fight on the main card, I really have to eat a ton of shit for this because I've been talking so much shit about Yuri for the last few months. I know Yuri is great. I have known that offensively, but I just really am not a fan of guys that have no defense. And I'm a bit of a Jamal believer, you could say. I really think Jamal is very good and has very crisp and sharp striking, but in the end, it didn't matter. Yuri was able to find his chin a few times more than Jamal was able to find his. And Yuri's head movement looked very on point tonight. Do I wish he'd put his hands up a little more still? Yes. But he kept slipping that right hand from Jamal and then coming back with the straight left down the middle and just completely rocking Jamal. First round I gave to Yuri. He dropped Jamal in the first. Second round I gave to Jamal. It was competitive, but I think Jamal did a bit more. And then in the third round, Yuri just came out like a bat out of hell and hurt Jamal off the rip, and then was able to land again and get the finish, some follow-up strikes, and that was it. Yuri's in a rough situation now because I guess now you can say he is either him or Ankalaev are the clear second best guy in the division. But Yuri's lost to Pereira twice, and it wasn't really a contest. Both times he got finished. Light heavyweight is kind of dry right now as far as contenders. I guess maybe you do Yuri versus Khalil or Yuri versus Ankalaev if Ankalaev loses, or if Ankalaev wins. If you don't run back the Pereira fight, you do the Yuri versus Ankalaev fight. But Yuri's just in that tough situation that like Max was in when Volk had the belt, that Chad Mendez was in when Jose Aldo had the belt. DC was in when Jones had the belt. Like, you're the clear, probably second best guy, but that champion you just can't get past or really have any success against. But Jamal, man, it's tough. I don't know what you do with him now. He's coming off of the first defeats of his career to Pereira and Yuri back to back. He's really got to go back to the drawing board and sharpen some things up. I think his footwork and his like mobility is a little bit wonky at times and gets him out of position when he's going up against these high level strikers. And honestly, he just looked a bit slow, and I was surprised to see that he looked a lot slower than Yuri. I don't know if this is everything, but I do wonder how much that torn Achilles has messed with him. He went into this fight with two knee braces on, so I assume he probably had a knee injury. And you wear the two knee braces so that the guy doesn't know which knee it is. But yeah, maybe you do Jamal versus Khalil. I don't know. It's tough for Jamal right now. He's probably got to take some time off. Two knockout losses back to back. Take some time off and go back to the drawing board, man. Next on this card, we had Jalton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak being moved up from the prelims in place of that Beneil and Moicano fight. Jalton Almeida, I am a believer in him. He definitely needs to improve his striking, but it actually looked pretty solid in this fight. He definitely has the best jiu-jitsu at heavyweight, which is always an asset at heavyweight because a lot of guys' ground game is not the best. And he really wiped the floor with Sergey. Sergey didn't have much success. I believe this fight ended in the first round, if I'm correct. Maybe it was the second. I don't remember. But Jalton gets the TKO finish, and it was very clean. Now it's just a question of can he compete with those top 4 or 5 guys. You know, he was whooping Curtis Blade's ass in Miami last year, and then just was sitting on Curtis's legs trying to get the double leg for way too long, and Curtis started to do the Travis Brown elbows to the side of the head and put him out cold. But before that, he was in control of that fight easily, repeatedly taking Curtis down, which is very surprising. So for him, I don't know, maybe you do Jalton versus Volkov or Jalton versus Gane. Jalton versus Gane I like because Jalton has limited stand-up and Cyril thrives there, and then Surreal has limited grappling and Jalton thrives there. So it'll be interesting to see who can implement what they do best, and it'll force each of them to really have to tighten up on the weakest parts of their game. So I like that fight a lot. To kick off the main card, we had Kevin Holland versus Renier de Ridder. I saw this one coming from a mile away. Kevin is back up at 185, and he is a guy who can make 170, and even as admitted, he is optimal at 170. It's just not the most fun for him, and he can get fights a lot quicker at 185. Renier de Ridder is a guy who was a two-weight world champ in one championship at middleweight and light heavyweight, so a lot bigger frame on him, and exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. I didn't know for sure that he was going to finish Kevin, but I knew he was going to take Kevin down and either win a decision or get the submission. Kevin's biggest problem is he really is just way too willing to play into the strengths of his opponents. Like, I know you have good jiu-jitsu and you don't mind fighting off your back, but as we saw in the Gerald Meerschaert versus Renier de Ridder fight, Gerald Meerschaert had a ton of success on the feet against Renier de Ridder, and Kevin Holland is a lot better of a fighter than Gerald Meerschaert. So I would have liked to think Kevin would do everything he could to stay off the ground and piece Renier up on the feet, which he probably would have been able to do, but he goes back to his old ways where he plays into what his opponents do best, and he fights their game and ends up coming out with an L on the record. I think that's 3 losses in a row now for Kevin. Um, it's tough. Kevin is like the modern day cowboy, but he hasn't ever reached the high. Like Cowboy was a title challenger at one point, strung together like 8 wins in a row at certain times. Like Cowboy was in that elite conversation at points, and Kevin's never really been there. And he's one of those guys where it's like if he's happy doing what he's doing, where he takes fights on short notice and fights a lot and wins some and loses some, cool. But he would just be so much better at 170. And if he would, why are you trying to strike with MVP on the feet, as much as you were? Mix it up. You're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Try to take him down. Wonder Boy, why are you having a full karate fight with Wonder Boy on the feet? It's just boneheaded decision making. But that's Kevin at the end of the day, and that's why we like him. Renier de Ritter looked impressive. I think you give him, let me think, maybe, you know what? Let's look at the middleweight rankings. Middleweight. Michelle Pereira, Shara Bullet, Jack Hermanson, Anthony Hernandez. Maybe you do like Paulo Costa versus Renier de Ritter, or Delidze, or Brendan Allen, or Cannonier. Honestly, I like any of these fights. Anthony Hernandez, that'd be a fun grappling match. Jack Hermanson, super solid. I think anywhere between 15 and 7 I don't mind, because all these guys are vets and have kind of been up and down at certain points. There's a big separation between like the 15 through 7 and then 6 through 1. So I think you give Renier someone in that mix. I'd try to get Costa to fight him. That would be probably a barn burner. So that'd be really fun. But yeah, Renier looked impressive. I do think he has, a pretty bright future at middleweight. Do I think he ever becomes champ? Probably not. He is 34, so he'd have to kind of be fast-tracked a bit. But very skilled on the ground and a big dude for middleweight. So a lot of guys are gonna have a hard time fighting him. And last but not least, the headliner of the prelims, Peyton Talbot versus Hani Barcelios. Talbot just got dominated. That ground game is obviously a very big hole, and Barcelos was just a bit too much of an experienced vet and very physical. Just too much for him, too early. But, I don't think it was a bad thing to give Peyton that fight if they're trying to build him up. Because if he went in there and starched Hani, then we would be singing a whole different tune. But obviously he needs a lot more improvement in the grappling. And he probably needs to put on a little bit more size. I don't want to dig too much into, what he does outside of the cage and the things he's talked about with, breaking into oil refineries. And the guy seems like he just lives life and does what he wants, which is awesome, and it makes him a character. But are you going to become, an elite fighter doing that? I don't know. He's going to have to probably sit down and think about if those things take away from his training or his focus on the fight. We don't really know. Those are all questions for him. But it's really too early to completely shit on him. He was, I think, 2-0 in the UFC before this, and he still looks like he's going to have a very bright future, because he just has a certain thing on the feet where he is very precise, and his timing, it just looks so natural for him and easy. And a lot of guys don't have that gift, and he does. So, go somewhere where you can improve a lot more on your grappling, because that's all guys are going to want to do is take you down and put you in a hard fight, similar to what guys want to do to like Sugar Sean, where they know he is a lights out striker on the feet, so they're going to make it a dirty, hard fight for him. That's what they're gonna do. Peyton, his whole career. But the kid is 9-1 now, has so much time to improve, and not gonna lie, he folded my fucking parlay off rip. So that sucked because he was a -1,000 favorite, and I picked him to either finish the fight or win by decision, which obviously didn't happen. My fucking parlay would have been folded anyway though, because Jamal Hill lost and I picked him, uh, and Umar lost and I picked him, so it didn't matter. But Peyton in the first round, he gets taken down, dominated for probably like 4 minutes out of the first round on the ground. Still probably a 10-9 because not enough damage was done. Second round, did a little bit better, but still got taken down. Same thing. Got very tired. And then the third round, he did do better. He was landing some shots, and him and Hani were trading back and forth. And Peyton was having fun. You know, he was smiling. Looked like he enjoyed being in that bit of a dogfight at the end. And then he got taken down again. But still had some bright spots. That's 2 wins in a row for Hani. So I guess they give him a step up in competition. And for Peyton, you know, depending on, I get the vibe that the UFC kind of looks at him like a Sugar Sean type of character that they're going to be able to build up for this young social media generation. So I assume they take a step back in competition, and they probably should because the kid was only 9-0, and Hani was just too much of a vet, too physical and strong for him, and it ended up not being Peyton's night. But super bright future ahead of him. I still think he will be very good. It just depends how the UFC builds him from here on out. Couple more fights on this card, guys. You had Bogdan Guskov, looked very impressive. I think Billy Elikana took this fight on short notice, right? But Guskov looks to be a pretty good prospect at light heavyweight. Grant Dawson had a great win over Diego Ferreira, and Diego is a vet that you really don't beat unless you are a very good fighter. So that's a very good win for Grant Dawson. Eileen Perez, you know, looked solid. I don't think she is going to be a title challenger or anything like that, but she is going to take a step up in competition, so we'll see. Bernardo Sopaj defeats Ricky Tercios. Bernardo Sopaj looks very good. A couple others on the card. Azamat Bekoov defeats Zach Reese, knocked him out in round 1. That was a good fight. But we broke down all the main ones, guys. Next, I am going to make a video to match up the winners and losers of these fights. And I have some interesting ideas, so I hope you guys tune in for that. But nonetheless, that is my UFC 311 post-fight breakdown. Guys, please like, comment, and subscribe for me. This was a hell of a fight week. That's all I got for you guys. I will see you in the next one.